nothing that recorded on my computer. So I do apologize. There is no class that I could post, no record video that I can post for the last class, but I'll make sure that we get this one. All right, now the last thing in this chapter 20, I believe, 20, I know chapter 21 is ERISA. So we talked about what workers' compensation, we talked about unemployment, we talked about Social Security, and now we're going to talk about retirement. I'm actually very disappointed in the level of information that is in the book with regard to ERISA, the Employee Retirement Income Security Act. It's a very big law. It's extraordinarily complicated. It's one of those things that realistically you could make a career out of being an expert at ERISA. It's uses the tax code to enforce the government's desires as to what retirement plans are supposed to be like. And in addition to retirement plans, and because that's really where it started from, it also deals with other benefit plans. So ERISA deals with any kind of employee compensation that isn't basically done with money, so salaries and wages and things like that are going to fall under the wage and hour law. But any other type of benefit, health insurance, life insurance, sick days, disability, long-term, short-term, all of those things are going to fall under ERISA along with the retirement plans. Now, what I want to do is I want to give you once again, I always say when we're talking about the law, one of the things that we have to do is we have to pay attention to why things occur, because almost every law that Congress passes is a reaction. They're very rarely proactive. They're always reacting to something that has happened, okay? And ERISA is another one of those things where it's a reaction to what was a perceived and actually a real abuse that was going on in the business world. So let's take a look at ERISA. We'll start with its applicability to pensions, retirements. Okay, so let's say that you're in the 1930s or even the 1920s or 1940s, and you have been working with your company for a very long time, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, whatever. And one of the things that your employer provides as part of its compensation package, in addition to its hourly wage, in addition to whatever other type of fringe benefits that are out there, they offer a retirement, a pension package. And basically what they do is they tell you that if you work for the company for 25 years, 30 years, pick a number. Let's make it 25. If you work for the company for 25 years, once you have the appropriate amount of service, 25 years, and you reach a certain age, let's say that you have to be at least 60 years old. If you have both of those things in line, then you will qualify when you retire to receive a retirement package from the company. And this retirement package is going to be an annuity, basically, where they will pay for you to receive a certain amount of income per month for the rest of your life. Okay, it's a nice deal. It's one of those things where you're thinking about, okay, eventually I want to get to the point in my life where I'm too old, I'm too tired to work, and I would like to retire. And I understand that I would need to have continuing income in order to retire. So, hey, this is a great deal. This is a great company. I want to do this. And you're willing to put in the 25 years of work to qualify for that benefit. Okay. Now, this is before or at the very beginnings of when Social Security, old age, disability payments were available out there, old age and survivors, OASI, old times. So maybe, this is how you're going to supplement the money that you're expecting to get from Social Security. And realistically, ask any financial advisor, don't plan on Social Security being your sole source of income in your retirement. It's not designed to be that. It's designed to be part of the money you have for retirement. So you still have to create other sources of income for yourself. And so having a retirement plan from your company is a good thing. Okay. But what would happen, we were finding out, is that the employees would work for the company and they would be getting up toward that point at which they would vest. And the term vest is a very specific legal term. Vest means that whatever conditions were required for you to obtain some sort of benefit or to acquire ownership of something. Vesting means that you met all of the conditions. Once you have met all of the conditions, the property becomes yours. Okay, it cannot be taken away from you. Legally, it is now yours. You have vested to the ownership of that benefit or that asset or whatever. All right. So at 25 years of service, you would vest in your ability or ownership of that promised retirement plan. Well, what would happen in the old days is you would be getting very close to the point where you would vest in that benefit, and then all of a sudden, the company would find fault with your work, and at some point, just shy of when you would get your 25 years worth of seniority or experience with the company, you would be fired. You could go on to the next company and attempt to qualify for their retirement package, but you've already wasted 25 years, almost 25 years of your working life at this one company that decided that they were not going to allow you. See, you didn't quit. They fired you. They didn't want you to vest in that retirement plan. So the retirement plan in all actuality is really just an illusion. It's out there to make you think you're working towards something, but it'd be a rare occasion that they would let anybody actually earn that. Okay, so that was a very common practice in the business world for the companies to fire their employees prior to their being able to vest in these types of programs. Okay, so this is the perceived injustice, and ERISA is passed to create a method to protect people's working careers. Because think about it, if you put, I don't know how many years you're planning on working during your professional life, but if you spent 25, let's say that place that you put 25 years in wasn't the first place that you worked. Let's say you worked 5 or 6 or 7 years at some other place, and then you started onto this place that had the promised retirement after 25 years of service. So let's see, if you put 8 years in, you start working when you're 18. So 20, 25, 26, you're 26, add 25 years to that, you're 51. And if everybody out there is offering pensions with 25 years worth of working experience or seniority with the company, so you're what I say, 51, 25 years onto that is 76. So if the second company doesn't decide to cheat you the same way that the first company decided to cheat you, you have no hope of being able to retire until you're at least 76. I guess if you didn't do that 7-year or 8-year stint with the other company, you'd be a little bit younger. But the reality of it is that you're wasting a great deal of your working career thinking you're earning a pension and trying to do the responsible thing to make you, to create income for yourself in your retirement, only to have it yanked away from you by an unscrupulous employer. All right, so ERISA is passed. And the big thing about ERISA is that it deals with vesting time. Okay, this is the original purpose of ERISA, that if a company wants to have a retirement plan, then they have to have vesting that is reasonable. Okay, and I'd have to look at the specifics. One of the things that I did when I was with the firm at the beginning of my my legal career was I was the firm's ERISA expert. I haven't done ERISA work in a few years, in a while, so I know the concepts, but specific numbers are going to escape me because they tend to change based on inflation and changes in the law. But my perception of the initial purpose of ERISA was to create vesting schedules that were appropriate, that weren't abusive. You know, so you could qualify and vest for your ownership or eligibility for the plan, so that you could not have that eligibility taken away from you as long as you vested. Okay, so vesting in my mind was one of two ways. And once again, these numbers may be different. And oh, by the way, none of this is in your textbook. There were two vesting plans. One was a 7-year plan, and one was a 10-year plan, or was a 3-year plan. Let's make it a 3-year plan, because that might actually be appropriate. You could have what's called cliff vesting, which means that you start with the company and you don't earn any vesting in the retirement plan until you hit a certain milestone amount of time or service with the company. Okay, and cliff vesting has to be a very short period of time. So year 1, no vesting. Year 2, no vesting. Year 3, 100% vested. Okay, cliff vesting. The company doesn't have to invest in you until you prove that you're going to be there for for more than just a minute. So cliff vesting is a very short period of time. You don't get any vesting in the plan until the date of eligibility, and then you get full vesting. So even if a company decided to fire you before you got vested in the retirement plan, because that's what they do, you'll have only wasted 3 years of your working history as opposed to 25 under the old rules. So if that was the company was abusive that way and they fired people before they would be able to vest in the program, so be it. You would just go on to the next company, but you'd still have an opportunity to earn a retirement plan before you get to an old age problem. Okay, so cliff vesting is not a bad thing because it's a very short period of time. The other thing is progressive vesting, which means that you would vest in a progressive manner. So let's say that a company had a 10-year program where you would become 100% vested in the plan at 10 years. A company could do something like this. And once again, these are illustrations. They're not probably the complete legal ones, but an illustration of what it's like. So year 1, you would have 0 vesting, but year 2, you would have 20% vesting. Year 3, 30, year 4, 40, year 5, 50, year 6, 60, year 7, 70, year 8, 80, year 9, 90, year 10, 100% vested. So for example, at year 5, if you only made it through 5 years with the company, you would be vested up to 50% of whatever the benefit that would be promised to you at full retirement. So although you wouldn't necessarily be entitled to it at that moment, you would probably have to wait until you meet the other requirements, which would be an age requirement. That money is sitting there waiting for you. You're vested in that money. It can't be taken away from you. Okay, so even if it's a much longer period of vesting, you're not being cheated because you're getting a little bit each year. So if you do end up being fired before you reach the full vesting period of time, which is longer than the cliff vesting, once again, you're not really super harmed. It's not super oppressive because of the fact that you did get partial vesting in the plan. So if you spent 5 years and got 50% vested in this plan, then you ended up at another company that had the same plan and spent 5 years with them, and you'd have 50% in their plan. Overall, you would have acquired 100% vesting, but it would be in 2 different plans. So originally, that's what ERISA was all about, was trying to protect the working lives of the people so that they would actually be able to get a retirement plan from their employer without having to worry about spending most of their working life just to be fired before vesting would occur. There are 2 main types of retirement accounts. There's something called the defined benefit plan, and there is something called the defined contribution plan. Those are the 2 different types of retirement plans that exist in the United States today. Your retirement plan, whatever it is with your employer, will fall into one of those 2 categories. Let's talk about what they are. I'm going to start with the defined benefit plan. Now, one of the things that's required by ERISA is that there be a plan document. There has to be a writing which explains exactly what the benefit is that you're trying to get. You know, how are they going to determine the value of the benefit? What is the term of that's required for you to vest in it? You know, all of the requirements. This is the legal contract that describes the benefit plan, the plan document, okay? So when we talk about a defined benefit plan, that means that in the plan document, they define the benefit of the retirement plan. Now, this is a dinosaur. They do exist, but they're not plentiful. This is something that if you see it, you should go, wow, look it's a defined benefit plan. Isn't that unusual? This was the type of retirement plan that we would see historically through our history. Now, I go back to my father when he was working at the shop. He was a laborer in a manufacturing plant, and he was a union member. That's another one of the things you're going to see, is that the defined benefit plans tend to be more affiliated with union membership than non-union membership. So you end up with a plan that is, they define your benefit. And so when my father was working, there was a formula that was in the defined benefit plan. So what would happen is you would earn credit for every year that you worked for the company. And then the formula would have a multiplier that was in dollars and cents. Okay, so if you had a defined benefit plan that said for every year of service, countable year of service, the benefit that you will receive when you retire from the company will be the number of years of service times $20. I don't know, just pick something. So my father worked for the company that he retired from for about 30 years. Okay. So if he worked for them for 30 years and the multiplier was 20, then his retirement benefit, his defined benefit, would have been $600 per month for life. Okay, so if it was required that he work until he got to age 65, and then he was allowed to retire at 65, and at that point he had 30 years of service with the company, he would be allowed to retire, and then that would be his benefit. 30 years times $20, $600. He would get $600 per month for the rest of his life, meaning starting at age 65 until he would die. Now, there are a lot of other complications in here, other choices that you can make. You can choose to have it survive you and be paid to your wife or your spouse after you die. That affects the actuarial values. It changes the numbers. But let's stay with the most simple version of that, which is number of years times the multiplier, and that's what you get during your lifetime. Okay, so my father would get $600 a month for life. Okay. Here's the problem with that. Now, the company knows how old my father is. So they know when he's going to turn 65. So they know how many years and months in the future they're talking about for when this potential liability is going to arise. Now, if my father dies before he gets to age 65, then they don't owe anybody anything. Okay. But if he gets to 65, now they have to be prepared to pay a lifetime annuity to the person who retired. Okay. So that's $600 times 12 per year, right? Just 12 months per year. So that means the company has to come up with $7,200 per year. Well, how many years is my father going to live? Well, that's an interesting question. Do we have any way of knowing how long somebody is going to live? Certainly we do. I've got a crystal ball. No, it's not my crystal ball. It's the actuarial tables. Anybody in the group majoring in actuarial studies? Is there anybody out there? Okay. Usually I get some in finance or business law, but employment law, I would think not. Actuarial studies are people who do very sophisticated calculations based on samples. They basically do probabilities, all that stuff in statistics that you learned. Think about that, being, at the 10th level of sophistication above what you learned in statistics. That's what the actuaries do. They take all of these numbers and they crunch them and crunch them and crunch them to the point where they can start making forecasts of what is going to happen. Now, we have all kinds of information about when people were born and when people died. We know all about what a life expectancy is. So the actuaries have put together actuarial tables, and the ones that are most used in the world that I live in are the ones that are used by the Social Security Administration, because they need to know how long you're going to live to know how many dollars of benefits you're going to receive when you retire from Social Security. Same thing in the insurance world, same thing in the retirement world. We need to know how long you're going to live. Now, what's going to happen is I'm not going to live the exact number of years it says I'm going to live on the actuarial table. So right now I'm 62. Let's start with this. Actuarially, in the United States, a male born in the United States at this point is expected to live to 76 years old. Okay, so we say that the average male has a life expectancy of 76 in the United States. Well, that's if you're born today. Okay, now there's a lot of things that can kill you when you're young. There are childhood diseases. There are, traffic accidents. There are all kinds, drug use, drinking and driving when you're, when you're at that, those ages where you don't believe that you can be harmed. So they lead to a lot of death. So there's a lot of people who end up dying young. And what happens is that skews the actuarial tables to make it appear that people are dying younger than they actually do. So if you were to look at the actuarial table for me, 62 years old right now, the actuarial tables would say that I'm going to live to probably around 81. We could look them up if you wanted, but it's unimportant. If you were to look it up and say, at this point, what are the actual tables? If you say, if I'm 62 years old, it would say that I would have another 19 years of life, which takes me to, 81. Okay. The reason it's 81 is because I didn't die when I was young. I didn't die as a baby. I didn't die from childhood illnesses. I didn't die from, drunk driving when I was a teenager. I didn't die from riding my bike in traffic, those things that kill, younger people. I didn't. So now I'm stuck with all the adult type things that can kill me. That being said, I'll probably make it to around 81. Am I going to make it to 81? I don't know. Same thing for my father. When he retired at 65, he should have made it to 81. He made it to 71. So he didn't meet his life expectancy. But then there's somebody out there that retired and made it to 90. On average, the actuarial people are right. So here's the thing. My whole point in bringing that up is you as a company have promised this benefit of an annuity, a monthly payment to your retiree for life. You need to fund that. How much money is it going to take? Well, it's a very complicated calculation, and this, this is not necessarily in the hands of the actuaries. This is in the hands of the finance department, where we have to figure out how many dollars are we actually going to give that person. So if you live to 81, so that's going to make it from 65 to 81. That's what, 16 years? Yeah, 16 years. 16 times 12 is going to be that number of months times $600 a month. That's the total amount of money that we need to have available. Does that mean I have to fund that with that exact amount of money? Of course not, because we have present values to take into account. Well, what I do is I take enough money so that I can put it aside today and invest it at whatever the market is going to bear. So I have to make an estimate as to what the market is going to do, and I keep it invested so that as the money is being spent, it's also having money that it's earning in. So it's a smaller amount that I have to fund than the actual, absolute dollar amounts. But I have to be able to calculate the earnings going forward for that 16 years, as well as the actual payments out during that 16 years. It's a very complicated thing. People that do these calculations make gobs of money. So it's very expensive to actually administer a defined benefit plan. As a result, they're dinosaurs. Nobody really wants them because they're very expensive to administer. If I want to go and buy a defined benefit plan from some insurance company, the fees for doing that for me are going to be exceedingly high, because that's the cost of, those people who were making those calculations. They make good money. So if you're looking for a career and it's not too late for you to change to actuarial studies and you absolutely love math, go do it. If you want to get into the finance world so you can calculate out how much you need to invest in order to come up with the present value of the cost of an annuity for somebody who's going to retire 10 years from now and collect money for 16 years, they make pretty good money too. So do those things. But otherwise, they're expensive. Most companies don't want to have them. The companies that do, like I said, generally union driven. Unions like those types of plans. The other problem with it is that the government, once again, because of ERISA, is very concerned about retirement plans not having the money to pay the people when they retire. So you as a company are not allowed to pay that retirement out of your operating funds, because what happens if you, the company, go bankrupt? Then there are no funds in order to pay that person who has that vested defined benefit plan. So what you actually have to do as a company is you have to take the money out of your earnings and invest it into some sort of a fund that is outside of your reach as a company. You can't get that money back, and it is put there and invested and held for the people who are retiring. Okay. The government makes sure that you do that. They audit your calculations and your contributions into the plan. And if you don't have what they consider to be an actuarially sound plan, then you'll be considered to be underfunded, and they will come after you. They'll fine you. They'll seize assets. They'll shut you down, because it's important to make sure that that fund for the employees is solvent, and it will meet all of its future obligations. As a matter of fact, in order to make sure that this exists, all of you people have heard about the FDIC, the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation, that insures banks to make sure that if your bank goes out of business, if they go bankrupt, then your assets your accounts will still be paid, but they'll be paid by this insurance company that is basically the federal government. You have the same thing in the retirement world. And what are the I can't remember the initials, but it's the same type of thing. There's an insurance company out there that is really the federal government, that if you have a defined benefit plan, that you have to pay into these insurance policies, so that if you go out or you underfund the plan, then the insurance company will fund the plan to provide those benefits to your employees. Complicated, expensive. Employers don't like it. Okay, so then we come up with the new wave of retirement plan, which is the defined contribution plan. The first one was the defined benefit plan. The second one is a defined contribution plan. The defined contribution plan is the 401k or any version of that. If it's a nonprofit, it's a 403b. It could be an IRA type program. But basically, the plan is that, okay, employee, I'm going to provide a method for you to be able to have money to retire when you retire. The employer can do any of 100 different things. At Teal, what I have the opportunity of doing is I have the opportunity of paying into a retirement plan. So I can take part of my earnings and I can have them diverted so that they don't end up in my check, but they end up in my 401k retirement plan. A lot of employers, what they do is they have some sort of a matching program so that, say, if I put 1% of my pay into the 401k, then the employer says, okay, we're going to help you retire. We'll put 1% into there for you to retire also. Or the company can say, what we're going to do is we're going to make it available for you to make contributions into your retirement plan, but we're also going to put in X% of your pay, regardless of whether you do or not. Okay. These plans do not have a guaranteed payout at the end. The defined contribution, like I said, you use the formula and you come up with the number of dollars per month that somebody's going to get for the rest of their life. A defined contribution plan, all it does is it defines how you put money into the plan. It does not give you a guaranteed outcome on the back end when you retire. Okay, so if the company says you're allowed to deposit up to 10% of your pay into this program, and we will match 50% of that, then that's the plan document will talk about defining the contribution and how the account is created. Okay, so that's the difference. The defined benefit, once you retire, you have a guaranteed income for the rest of your life. The defined contribution, we're giving you a vehicle in which you can retire. And what happens is whatever money is in that bucket that you put in and the company puts in, that's your money. When you retire, instead of there being here, you're going to get X number of dollars a month for the rest of your life, it's here's this large bucket of money that you've been able to save during the years that you were working. And now it's up to you to figure out how to spend that money over the remaining years of your life after you've retired. Okay. Defined contribution, I've got guaranteed income for the rest of my life. Defined benefit, I mean, defined contribution, I've got a bucket of money that I've got to try and figure out how to make last until I die. Okay. Big difference. Most companies at this point prefer the idea of the defined contribution plan. Why? Because there's no actuaries required. We don't have to worry about making sure that there's enough money there so that the person will have, that the fund will have the ability to create an annuity of X number of dollars per month for life. All we have to do is make sure we keep it safe. Okay, so during your working years, you put in $100,000 and we put in $50,000 because we had a 50% match. Now what's going to happen is that money is going to be invested during your working years, and hopefully it's going to grow from the initial investment of the 100 from me, 150 from the company, 150, and hopefully the investments that it's been invested in during the period of time that I've been working has allowed that to grow. So it's not just the 150 that I put in, maybe it's gone to 500,000. And that's what you'll have available to you when you retire. Now, I said that ERISA was very much related to the tax code. Very much so in complication and complexity. If you can read the tax code and make sense of it, you can read ERISA and make sense of it, because it's basically written by the same people. And the other side of it is ERISA uses the tax code to enforce its provisions. Okay, so let's talk about why you would want to have a retirement plan. Okay, this class is on employment law. Why would you want to have, let me see something here. Why would you want to have a retirement plan for your employees? Somebody. Maddie, why do you want to have a retirement plan for your employees? It's just a cost, isn't it?
Probably to like ensure they have something to fall back on too.
Oh, that's a very good point. We're going to come back to that. That's true. That is one reason. Any other reason? Very good point, Maddie. Well, you want to have the best employees that you can, right? It's not always about trying to have the cheapest people that you can working in your company. You know, if I'm McDonald's, you know, I'm going to hire people. You know, like the old business plan was I'm going to hire a bunch of you know, high school kids and I'm going to give them a minimum wage, and basically their work ethic is not going to be fantastic, but I'm going to be able to train them and get enough work out of them to be able to run my restaurant. But I don't really care if I keep them long term or not. It's a lot different if I'm a manufacturer and the people who are working for me that are manufacturing my product need very specialized skills in order to be able to do the work. I don't want to have people, you know, a constant revolving door of employees, because having an employee who is well trained and skillful excuse me, at the manufacturing job is important to me. So when I hire somebody, I'd like for them to want to stay. Okay, so I'm not going to pay them the least amount possible. I'm going to pay them what I feel is a fair wage so that they are going to be taken care of. They're going to feel that they're being properly paid, and they're going to be happy in their job, and they're going to want to stay with me, because it's disruptive if I have to hire somebody and train them on how to make my widgets, right? So I'm much better off if I can keep those people. How do I get people that want to stay with me for a long period of time? Create a retirement account. No, it's not going to be stay with me for 25 years and you'll get this retirement. Obviously, we talked about the fact that the vesting schedules are much, much shorter. But the whole point of it is, if you believe that you're being taken care of, and you believe that I'm trying to help make it possible for you to live a nice life in your retirement, you're going to want to stay with me. And it is a lot less disruptive in my business. I'll have the people that I want to have. Obviously, if you're not doing your job, I should get rid of you and hire somebody that is able to do the job properly. But the people who are there that I want to keep, a retirement plan is one of those things that causes them to look into the future. So even though they may feel that, gee, you know, I could make another 50 cents an hour if I went over to, you know, the main competitor, but they don't have a retirement plan. Well, you know, thinking it through, you know, that extra 50 cents an hour is going to get me what, an extra 20 bucks a week, versus me being able to say that I'll be able to retire and live nicely when I retire. Yeah, I'm not going to go to the competitor. I'm going to stay with Gmolchak widgets. So it's one of those things that makes you think beyond today. It makes you think into the future. Now, if my competitor is offering a better retirement plan than me, then you should probably go. You know, if they're paying more per hour and and they have a better retirement plan, you should probably go. But it's up to me to make sure that I'm trying to stay competitive. And just because retirement benefits cause you to think about the future, it causes you to want to stay. Okay, so that's why you have a retirement plan. Now, Maddie made a very, very good point a minute ago, saying, you know, maybe I want to have the ability to put money aside for myself too. So I want to have a retirement plan so that I have that vehicle to do it. Okay, that's a very interesting issue. And in the real world, what you really have happen is, if you're talking about a small company, you know, a small, you know, maybe 25, 30 employees type thing, I'm going to ask these questions out there. Who is going to be the the president of the company if it's a company with like 30 people in it? Andre, who's going to be the president?
Probably, I don't know, probably someone like that's not inside of the business that you don't see often, or maybe the employees are just like independent contractors.
No, no. The president is generally going to be the owner, because he's going to be the guy who's running it and calling all the shots, right? And so just taking it the next step beyond that, who are going to be the next level of management, like the office manager and the plant manager and the human resource manager and the accounting manager? Who are those people going to be? What do you think, Colton? Who are those people, that upper level management? Who are they going to be? Colton? All right, Colton must have gone to the bathroom. Holly, what do you think?
Like the CEOs and the CFOs and all of them up there.
Yeah, but who are they going to be? Who are the people going to be?
Oh, the people that have been there the longest or the most skilled.
Nope. It's going to be the owner's wife and his children. That's the real world. You create this business and you turn it into a successful business. You tend to create a family dynasty out of it. Okay. So you're going to be the CEO, the president, whatever title you want to give yourself, and you're going to be the one who calls all the shots. It's your business. You should, and you should have that right. I'm not saying that's a bad thing. You should be the president. But generally, what happens then is you realize you've got this profitable company, and what you're going to do is you're going to hire your family. My wife, okay, I want my wife to be the accounting manager, or at least to, be the person who is the office manager to keep track of all the money that's coming in. Because, with my widget company, I'm probably out in the manufacturing area making sure that the widgets are being made in the proper way, and that the quality control stays up, and that our efficiency is up, and blah, blah, blah. I don't have time for the office. I have to have somebody in the office that I believe I can trust. Who's that going to be? It'll be my wife. 9 times out of 10 with these smaller businesses, that's who it's going to be. It's going to be the wife. And who are the people who are going to be the various manager? Who's going to be the manager of the sales department? Who's going to be the manager of the production people? It's going to be my kids. Okay. So the upper management of the company is probably going to be my family. It doesn't have to be. I'm not saying 100% of the time it is, but a great deal of the time you're going to find that those. And what we're going to do is we're going to give them a title. We're going to call them the highly compensated employees. And, once again, not that I'm being mean to the people who are working in the manufacturing department and actually doing the physical manufacturing of my product, not being mean to them, but who are the people that I really want to make sure are taken care of, and that I'm probably paying more than they're worth? It's going to be my family. And they're going to be in the positions, unless they're completely inept, they're going to be in the management positions of my company. Because one of the things about running a company is that the biggest problem you have is, who can you trust? Do you want to make sure that people aren't stealing from you? I can't tell you the number of clients that I've had that had businesses that were very profitable, but they had a hard time keeping them open because they had dishonest employees. What's the easiest way for me to make sure that I'm going to have honest employees? Family. Okay. That happens a lot. Now, Maddie, getting back to your question or your point, you said you wanted to make sure that you had the ability to take advantage of the program and put money away for retirement also. Here's the problem that occurs in the real world. I'm the owner, president. My wife is the vice president and office manager. My children are the sales manager and the production manager. And they make more individually than any other people, even the people who are doing the actual production of my product. Maddie, you're right. I want to start putting money aside for my retirement. Now, here's the big deal. In order for a retirement plan to be qualified, magic word, qualified, a qualified retirement plan, it has to meet the requirements of ERISA. And if it's a qualified plan, I get to deduct the cost of funding the plan from my taxes. So I end up getting a deduction, which reduces my taxes, which gives me a subsidy in running my company, because the government's basically funding part of that cost for me because it's deductible. Okay. I don't necessarily want to give money to, John Smith. Everybody that I want to benefit should have the last name Gamalchak. I want to benefit me. I want to benefit my wife. I want to benefit my kids. And I want that benefit that I'm going to give to my family. I want it to be deductible so that the government is actually paying a part of it for me. That is the new abuse that happens in the retirement world, where you have the owner and the highly compensated employees being, of course, the family of the owner, being the only ones that qualify to receive this benefit. So I'm going to set up this retirement plan, and I'm going to define who's allowed to be in this retirement plan based on, job position or something like that. So it doesn't look like I'm just taking advantage of people or advantaging people with the last name Gamalchak. It's going to be the people who are most important to the company, the president, the vice presidents, and the managers. Well, what I did was I just defined my family by using other words. And I don't want to have anybody else be eligible for this plan. That's the new abuse. And ERISA was changed to deal with that abuse. Okay, so what we have out in ERISA right now are non-discrimination rules. Well, wait a minute. Discrimination, we've heard about discrimination before. Isn't discrimination when we don't give people benefits, or we don't give them considerations because of excuse me, problems with issues with race or religion or sex or age or, whole bunch of other things, what I refer to in business law as the suspect classifications. Absolutely, that's discrimination. But ERISA is more concerned with discrimination in favor of the highly compensated employees, because what happens is those highly compensated employees are generally the family members, and the government says, hey, you know what? You want to create a retirement plan that is only going to benefit your family? Go ahead and do it. It's just not going to be qualified. It won't be qualified under ERISA. And if it's not qualified under ERISA, guess what you give up? The tax deduction. Go ahead, put the money aside, but it's not going to be tax deductible. So you are not going to get any benefit on the tax side from having done that. Oh, you want to get the tax deduction? Great. Make the plan qualified. How do you make the plan qualified? Don't let it discriminate in favor of the highly compensated employees. You have to make sure that everybody, down to the lowest paid person on the manufacturing floor, is eligible for the program. You have to make sure that there's a bunch of tests. It's been a long time since I've done the anti-discrimination tests in ERISA, but they deal with and it's defined as highly compensated. So you can't have too much of the benefit of the program going to the highly compensated employees. So even if you do it based on salary, that will put in a portion, a certain percentage of your salary, it's possible that you could violate the anti-discrimination rules because your highly compensated employees are paid so much more than everybody else that the contribution you make into the plan for them is way in excess of what you make for other people. You'd still fail the test, even though everybody was allowed to be in the plan. So you'd have to cut the benefit or the contributions that you're making on behalf of your family members. Okay, so that, Maddie, you brought up a very great point saying you wanted to make a plan that would benefit yourself. You can do that, but if you want it to be a qualified plan, everybody has to be in it. That's the, excuse me, that's the temptation, is to make a plan, because think about it. If I get the deduction, it's certainly helping me pay for it, but I still have to put in the full payment for everybody else that's going to benefit. So am I getting that? Is the tax deduction that I'm getting going to be enough to pay for everybody else to be in? Probably not. It's still going to cost me money. But then again, if I offer that retirement plan, it has the effect of locking in my employees for a longer period of time, and they become more loyal employees. my work gets better, my morale in the company is better. It's not a bad thing. Okay. Um, the other thing, one of the things that the chapter, I should have a bottle of water here, getting dry. One of the things that the chapter talks about is fiduciary responsibility. Fiduciary. Fiduciary means you are acting on behalf of somebody else. Okay, so if I'm running a retirement plan, I have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that the people that are holding the money are doing it for the benefit of the people who are beneficiaries of the plan. Okay, now it was kind of interesting. A number of years ago, I was involved in some planning with the people who run the Teal Retirement Fund. Thank you. Now I have water. And I was allowed to choose the investments that I wanted my money to be invested in so that it could grow over the period of time until I retire. And I had chosen some rather, I guess, aggressive investments. And then the federal government passed a law regarding fiduciary responsibility for the people who are sponsors of the plan. And they hired, Teal hired a company, a consulting company to come in and to take a look at the way that the Teal plan was being operated. And they looked at some of the investments that we were allowed to choose, and they felt that those particular investments were too risky. And as a result, by allowing me to choose a risky investment, that they were not exercising their proper fiduciary responsibility. So I remember I ended up having to have a meeting with this consulting group because they completely redid all of my investments. I had chosen certain funds because I liked their investment philosophies, and it was an aggressive thing. I was trying to get a bigger return on my money that was in the retirement fund. But they did away with those particular investments. They don't even offer those more risky investments. And I had to get together with this consulting company and choose new funds to be invested in. So fiduciary responsibility is another one of those things. All right, beyond that, we talked about health insurance, we talked about retirement. Okay, so the two basic plans, the defined benefit and the defined contribution. Understand that that's what's out there, that's what exists. What else does ERISA cover? Well, ERISA covers, as I started saying earlier, just about every fringe benefit that's out there. Vacation, sick days, health insurance, life insurance, disability insurance. What else is out there? Anything that's considered to be a fringe benefit will be covered by ERISA. And a fringe benefit is any compensation that goes to the employee that is not dollars to the employee. Okay, so my wages, the dollars that come to me, the Federal Wage and Standards Act. The other things that come to me are fringe benefits covered by ERISA. So what are the other types of fringe benefits that are out there that we could be talking about? Well, we could be talking about the other big thing that's out there beyond retirement that's under ERISA is health insurance. Health insurance is a big deal, mostly because of how expensive it can be. Now, I believe the next chapter is on insurance, so I don't have to go into it too in depth. I will talk about it a bit, but I don't have to go through it too in depth. Health insurance is extremely expensive. If you guys are young and you probably are in relatively good health, so for you to go out and buy health insurance on yourself right now, it probably wouldn't cost more than like $400, $500 a month for you to have individual health insurance, and you would probably qualify to buy the policy. I'm much older. I'm 62 years old, and believe it or not, I'm not as healthy as you guys. You know, the fact that I have the additional 40 years on you, it's taken its toll on me. And as a result, I have some medical issues. And as a result, if I were to go into the marketplace and just go and try and buy an individual health insurance policy for myself, number one, I may not be able to buy it because of the fact that I have these pre-existing health issues. Okay. The second thing is, if I am able to find it, it's going to be ungodly expensive. So for me to buy a individual health insurance policy, I would probably be paying in the area of about $1,500 or $1,600 per month for that health insurance. You can go see what that is. So availability of the insurance is an issue, and cost of the insurance is an issue. In the insurance world, you have this concept of group coverage. Okay, so if you look at me as an individual, I am a higher risk of needing to take advantage of the insurance benefits than somebody like you would be, because you are a much younger, much healthier person. So, you know, I'm on prescription medication that costs me money, and it's costing the insurance company money on a monthly basis. You probably don't have continuing prescriptions that you take on a regular basis, on a day-to-day basis, month to month, year to year. So I'm much more expensive. In order to get the cost of insurance down, what companies have done over the years is buy what's called group insurance. So what they do is they say, okay, I've got 100 employees in this company, and I would like to be able to provide health insurance to all 100 employees. So now what you have is you have a group of 100 people, some of which are going to be very young and in extraordinarily good health, some of which who are going to be middle-aged and in pretty good health, and some people who are going to be older and going to, I'm not saying I have one foot in the grave, but I do have some health issues. Okay, so putting us together as a group, if you look at it from those points of view, the insurance company is going to realize that they'll be able to collect premiums on the people who are young, who are not going to be making any claims. They'll collect the premiums on the people who are middle-aged, who are probably not going to make a tremendous amount of claims. And then there's going to be the older people like me who are going to make some claims, but hopefully nothing, outrageous or overwhelming. So by putting everybody together into a group, you can drive the individual cost down. And by doing this as a group, it's an all or nothing situation. The insurance company has to take the entire group on, or nobody. They can't say, well, yes, we like your group, but we don't want Gamalchak. We'll take everybody but Gamalchak. Can't do that. With a group, you take everybody. So then people who have some sort of medical pre-existing condition, we will get the insurance because that's not you can't be kicked out of the group because of your existing issues. Okay, in the insurance world, in the individual insurance world, that is a major problem. Okay, so now, what are the rules about health insurance? Well, am I allowed to provide health insurance just for my highly compensated employees? No, we have those non-discrimination rules in ERISA that apply across the board, not just to retirement. So when we talk about having a benefit that is going to be skewed in favor of highly compensated employees, it's not going to qualify. If it doesn't qualify, you don't get the tax deduction for it. Okay, so once again, if I wanted to provide a benefit for just the highly compensated employees, I could do that, but I wouldn't be able to deduct the cost. I would not get the tax deduction. I would not be able to reduce my taxes. The other thing is that I've got a much smaller group. So if my group is going to consist of older people, I'm going to have a problem convincing an insurance company to take us on as a group of, say, 4 or 5 people. So then you end up, with maybe it not working at all. so you have a little bit less problem with the highly compensated employee discrimination in the health insurance side of this, because you need a larger group in order to get those discounts and in order to get that coverage. But you do have that non-discrimination policy out there. Life insurance. Let's take a look at life insurance. It's another one of those things, and it's an employee benefit. It's a fringe benefit. It's something that is controlled by ERISA. And so with life insurance is very simple. You pay premiums to the insurance company until either it gets paid off under whole life, or it's a term life that it's paid on a monthly basis. Until you either stop making the payments or you die. If you stop making the payments, then the insurance ends. If you die, your beneficiaries get paid the benefit, the proceeds of the value of your life insurance. At Thiel College, I am given a $50,000 life insurance policy as part of my employment package. Okay, that is a magic number because under ERISA and the federal tax code, they are allowed to give me that value of insurance without it affecting my income taxes. The company is allowed to deduct the premium from its taxes, and it is not considered to be income for me. If we were to go over that, say I had $100,000 worth of life insurance, then 50,000 of it would be free to me. I wouldn't have to pay to report any of it as income, but the other $50,000 worth of life insurance, I would have to take the premiums in as income and pay tax on it. As you see, ERISA is hand in hand with the tax code. Because if you do not qualify, and that's the magic word under ERISA, qualified. If you qualify, if your benefit, if your plan qualifies under ERISA, then you get the tax deduction. If it does not qualify, you're allowed to give it, but you don't get the tax deduction. Okay, that's the big thing about ERISA. And like I said, it almost seems like it was written by the same people who wrote the tax code, and it probably was, because it is so hand in hand with the tax code, whether a benefit is taxable or not, whether it is deductible or not. It's very, very, very closely related. That's the other thing about ERISA and these benefits, these fringe benefits that I'm talking about. One of the big deals about it is that it is a deduction to the company, but it is not income to the employee. That's an unusual thing under the tax code, because the tax code likes to be very symmetrical. If one entity is given a deduction, another entity has to have has to declare income. So if I'm allowed to take a deduction because I gave you money, then you have to declare it as income. I pay you wages, I take it as a deduction. You have to declare your wages as income and pay tax on it. That's the way the tax code generally runs. Everything under ERISA, the employer, if it's qualified, the employer gets the deduction. The employee does not have to record it as income. So that money that the company pays out to provide me with health insurance is not taxable to me, but it is tax deductible to the employer. Okay. I do want to take attendance before I run out of time today. So let me just click over to the attendance portal here. And let's see, Holly, I saw that you were out there. We talked. Marlon, are you out there? I didn't see.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, great. Madeline, you are out there. Maddie De Palma. Emily Grundy. Emily Grandy, are you out there? Not today. Okay. Colton, I saw you were out there. Seiyun Huang, I see you were out there. Kayla, Jewel, you're out there, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Salam, I didn't see if you were there. I have to check because I know that you don't ever have voice. Let me just check and see. Yep, he's there. Great. All right, Salam. Maddie Neely, you're out there, right?
Yeah.
Catherine Solers.
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Hallie Vogt.
Here.
Okay, Autumn Wanchuk.
I'm here.
All right, Andre Williams, I saw with you and we talked. Ashley Wolford
Here.
and Natalie Zgurich. You're out
Here.
there. Okay, save attendance and move back to Zoom. All right, does anybody have any questions about I'm sorry, that was my thoughts were gone for a minute there. Does anybody have any questions about ERISA? It's a very complicated thing. Like I said, I'm kind of disappointed that the book didn't give a little bit better treatment to. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Okay, it's weird. This is supposed to have a blue light on it. It doesn't right now. Okay, I'm actually disappointed the book didn't give it a little bit better treatment. It's just a very, very, very large area out there. So, you know, most of you, because you're taking this class, most of you are probably HR majors. ERISA is an area where you could spend your entire career. So you may want to pay attention to it. Like I said, there's a tremendous amount of ability to be employed just maintaining, you know, on the finance side of it, actuarial side of it, but even beyond that, just being able to deal with the compliance issues, because there are a number of tests that are out there as to determining whether you are a qualified plan or whether you don't qualify because of the problems with discrimination in favor of highly compensated individuals or something like that. Tremendous opportunity for employment in this particular field. So yeah, it might be something you may want to consider. Like I said, when I was at the law firm, I became the ERISA expert. I found it quite fun. It's also a very, very complicated area, and it's so it can be very challenging. So if what you're looking for is basically, oh, I want to have a cubicle and I don't want to have any problems and keep my head down and collect my paycheck, well, maybe it's not for you. But the one thing that I've always understood about jobs out there in the real world is that the jobs that pay the money are the ones that very few people can do, or they're the jobs where you have to make the decisions. ERISA is one of those areas where it's a bit on the complex side, so few people can actually do it. So I think it tends to pay more money. And I think you do have the opportunity to make some decisions in this area. So I think they're relatively good paying jobs in the ERISA side of things. If we don't have any other questions, I think we'll just call it a day. The only thing that I need to remind you is that we still will be on Zoom on Thursday. I don't know that I mentioned this, but you can't tell it from my my beautiful beach background there, but I'm no longer in Pittsburgh. I'm back up in Erie. My son was, in fact, discharged from the hospital over the weekend. He has made some tremendous strides forward and improvement in his situation. Thank you, Andre. Last week. Certainly not completely recovered. It's going to be a long road for him, but there was no longer any need for him to be in the hospital. I'm not on campus this week because we basically need to redesign how we take care of him at home with his new needs from the new medical problems. But I fully expect that I will be back on campus starting with my office hours next Monday, and we should be able to have in-person classes for the rest of the semester. That's my hope and prayer. And if that changes, I'll let you know, but Zoom on Thursday, and very likely we'll be face-to-face next week. So, no questions, then that's it for today. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you on Thursday.